Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it and I promise to update daily. If you love this watch, you can see it and you can purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. And today we are discussing what might be the most striking of the 2018 all-new Rolex Oyster Perpetual Datejusts. This is the 126233, but it has an additional appendage. It is the -0025 reference. So 36 millimeters in what Rolex describes as Rolex, or it's really just a bunch of yellow gold and stainless steel occupying the same 36 millimeter space. It is nevertheless incredibly striking, not so much because of the contrast of metals, but because of that dial, olive green as Rolex describes it. 36 millimeters in diameter on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. It wears easily. You can see it's not a thick watch, only 11.8 millimeters thick, nor is it a broad watch across the wrist, 43.3, and if you include the solid end links of the Super Jubilee bracelet, it's still only 45 millimeters across the wrist, meaning I can recommend this watch for wrists as small as 13 to 13.5 centimeters circumference. This can really wear well on a smaller wrist. It's not a men's watch and it's not a ladies' watch. It's the traditional Datejust size, 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Proportionally, it looks much like previous 36 millimeter Datejusts. And again, this is not a unisex size. It is a standardized size. It's been with the Datejust since the very first reference in 1945, and so too is the bracelet. 1945 was 40 years of Rolex, so the Datejust was the Jubilee model, and the Jubilee bracelet launched with it. Since 2005, we have had the Super Jubilee, much more solid and substantial. It features, among other traits and refinements, solid individual small links, so they're no longer loops of metal. They are solid ingots of steel. A combination of satin and polish, differential link size, differential link finish, both satin and polish, differential link alignment. It is very smooth and silky on the wrist. It always has been. Just now, it's more substantial. It inspires more confidence, almost like a sports bracelet. You could see that there is a lift lock system with a beacon hook inside the clasp. You hear it click shut and click open. You can also see that the interior of the clasp is fully finished, all of high polish. That's a signature of a premier Rolex watch. Oftentimes when you see a blasted or satin interior, that's more of an entry-level piece. A straight through yellow gold clasp, polished on its flanks, satin on its top. You could see that internally, despite this being a Jubilee, you do still get the Easy Link system that you would have on an Oyster. So you have that 5 millimeters of tool-free adjustment. And of course, I always like to call this out because it's rarely mentioned. There are 3 anchoring points inside the clasp that allow you to change the station or the anchoring of the bracelet so you can move it forward or backwards in the clasp. So it's not just link removal and not just easy link. There's another degree of adjustability that's often unacknowledged. The case is simple. It's a bit stronger than in the past. You can see the lug profiles are so subtle in their revision and their nuance that it's difficult to tell them apart from a 2017 Datejust 36 unless they are literally side by side. They remain strong. There's a sharply defined break between the hood of the lug and the flanks of the case, but we are not talking a super case. It's not squared off. It's not slab-sided. It still has that wonderful dancing flame effect as you move the light across its surface. Likewise, you have that wonderful gem-like cut faceted stone effect about the fluted bezel in yellow gold. You can see how the light dances across its surface. It really is like a cut gem, and it's wonderfully sharp. As this is a watch of recent production, it's always a pleasure to see a fluted solid gold Rolex bezel that has never been refinished. But it does struggle to hold its own against that dial, and that dial makes me want to bite my knuckles. Look at that olive green sunburst. Rolex calls this, formally speaking, the olive green dial, and it's a sensation. It might be the most impressive and compelling dial Rolex makes. The rollout has been very slow across models, but it's finally arrived in a watch that a guy can wear. And as you can see, the use of gems on this dial is so subtle. You can barely see the micro setting in the Roman numeral 6 and 9. Blink and you'll miss them, but they twinkle like little stars on that dial. And this is a dial of all applique yellow gold Roman numerals with a railroad-style printed minutes and seconds track outboard, the sunburst giving the dial that dancing quality, and of course you have a high-contrast white on olive printing. All of the individual numerals, as well as the 5-point Rolex coronet, are applique and high-polished. They are solid gold, so they will never fade, tarnish, or oxidize over time. Rolex has its own foundry in Plan-les-Ouates, Switzerland. It makes its own gold, it makes its own steel, it stamps its own cases, makes its own bracelets and clasps in that factory, and it makes its own 904L highly anti-corrosive stainless steel. It's best compared to Zinn's U-boat style in that it's a steel so stainless you need not even clean it after submergence in salt water. Underneath the caseback, one of the major revisions for the 2018 year, the arrival of the 70-hour power reserve Rolex manufactured caliber. You ready for this? You're getting the Rolex caliber 3235. Not much of a change, right? Think again. 3235 features the Chronergy escapement, which contributes to roughly 1/3 of the energy saved, helping to extend the power reserve from 48 to 70 hours. The train wheels from the barrel to the escapement have been reprofiled. Chronergy is mostly executed using LIGA formation tactics, which is a computer electro-erosion system. It's actually a German acronym that allows micro-manufacture of components to tolerances never before seen in the Swiss watch industry. You get a reprofiled mainspring barrel with a reprofiled mainspring. By making the walls of the barrel thinner, they were able to make the mainspring larger. It beats away at 4 Hertz. It has stop seconds, a quick set date, a full balance bridge, and a full free-sprung index with microstella adjustment nuts on the balance. The two features free-sprung full balance combining for shock resistance. Over coil hairspring, the watch is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer, but it's also a COSC chronometer plus with the superlative chronometer being substantiated, that dial text you see at 6 o'clock, by Rolex's testing and regulation of the fully cased up watch, not the bare movement as with the COSC. Rolex attests to a timing standard of no worse than +2, -2 seconds per day. Remember, COSC is -4 +6. You also get the Cyclops eye, present and correct as ever. It's been part of the Datejust since 1954. It does help improve date legibility. The movement, bidirectional winding with Teflon-coated reversing wheels, very smooth and silent in action. The 31 jewel caliber, all Rolex, right down to the Rolex proprietary Parashock shock protection springs. They've even vacated the use of KIF springs. Everything on this watch, right down to the shock protection, now Rolex. One of the most striking of the 2018 Datejust 36s. You can see this one and make it yours on the watch box.